Hi, everyone. We are expecting about 10 people. Right now, we've got 4 on the line. So we're going to wait a few minutes to begin, and hopefully a few of them will show up. Wait until 5:05, and then we'll start. And if they're not here, hopefully they'll join us as they come on. All right, everyone. I see it's 5:05, so we're going to get started. My name is Steve Bain. I'm a Senior Program Director for the Junior State of America. I've been with the organization for 11 years. And right now, I'm also the program director for the Pacific Northwest Junior State. I'm on the line with Jean Kim. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jean? You there, Jean? I think you're muted.
Sorry, didn't let me unmute myself. Hi, my name is Jean Kim. I'm the governor of the Ohio River Valley.
All right, we're just going to get started.
So we just wanted to have a webinar to kind of explain what JSA was, because oftentimes people don't really realize that JSA is a lot more than just an organization in their school or an organization in their state, and we wanted to just kind of give a broader understanding of what this organization is. So just some JSA basic facts. It started in California in 1934 to teach students about democracy, and it has expanded to become the largest student-run organization in our country. It is both nonprofit and nonpartisan, and our values are with the acronym LEAD, which are leadership, empowerment, accountability, and diversity and inclusion. So JSA differs from your basic just school debate club or just some activism organization because it kind of combines the two. It allows students to gain perspectives and form their own personal opinions through hearing the voices of others. It also strengthens their leadership skills, and it also helps them become active citizens in the organization and in just their community overall. And JSA stands out mostly because of its mission, which is to strengthen American democracy by educating and preparing high school students for lifelong involvement and responsible leadership in a democratic society. So this is the part of JSA that most people probably recognize. The state structure is where there's the governor, the lieutenant governor, elected officials that differ by state, and then the state cabinet, which runs your state. So there are 10 states in the entire junior state, and we'll get to that later on. And then the part of JSA that you guys are super familiar with is the chapter, which is school-based. They have 8 members at minimum, but they can have as many members as you guys please, and those are the fundamental part of JSA. They're the building blocks of our organization and have regular meetings throughout the year, which really helps make them important. So a little bit more about the chapter level. This is where you have your just classic meetings, which usually feature debates and thought talks, though oftentimes our chapters go above and beyond in promoting our mission and also do activism initiatives and events and such like that. It is, as I said before, the most fundamental aspect of JSA, Although JSA, unlike on this national JSA webinar, is a very large organization and does a lot more than just in your school, it's also important to remember that what makes JSA so special is each individual person across America who, even though they don't know about national JSA, still participates in its mission through the chapter. So speaking of our chapters and national structure, we have 390 active chapters nationwide across the 10 states. So if you look at this map here, you can see the 10 different states that are in our junior state of America. And there are 7,505 tax-paid members currently. So as I said before, there is a governor for each one of those states. So that means there are 10 governors in total, and they represent the states on a national council called the Council of Governors. So you can see a picture of all of our Council of Governors here, one from each state, and they help have national initiatives and directives that are created and initiated by them and national cabinet, which they're also responsible for appointing and managing, and which in turn oversee the state directors, which in turn oversee the chapters and ensure that the things that we come up with as a national organization are implemented just throughout the organization all the way down to the fundamental chapter level. So one of the things that the Council of Governors, or COG, is responsible for is creating the national goals for each year. So here you can see our goals for 2018 and 19. Increase the number of national JSA chapters from 390 to 427. Increase the number of JSA students that attend summer school to 158. Create a midterm menu of activism events that have 2/3 of all chapters participate in at least 2 events this fall. The midterm menu is actually released recently, and we have a webinar about national activism on Thursday at the same time, so be sure to tune into that. Fundraise $200,000 towards the JSA Scholarship Fund, and create and track more leadership opportunities for JSA delegates. As we are a leadership organization, and you want to make sure that we're always providing the best experiences and best opportunities for everybody. So the Council of Governors, although each governor represents their own state and each state is on equal ground, we do have some council positions to just help with just delegating work and making sure things run smoothly on our council. Our chair for the Council of Governors is Max Singh from the Midwest. We call her our trustee, but as a trustee, she serves as a director on the Junior State of America Foundation, which Steve will be talking about later, and that is Caitlin Zhao from Southern California. And I serve as the secretary for our Council of Governors, which has me taking notes and just making sure overall, organizationally, we're up to date. So the national cabinet is selected much like your state cabinets are. The application is released in the summer, and we have interview processes. We read through all the applications, and eventually we come up with all of our directors. So here you can see our wonderful national cabinet for this year. Each director is also tied in with a governor who will be helping them carry out their initiatives and their roles. So that's, although they work with the chair, and the chair is mainly responsible for making sure that national cabinet is functioning properly, is doing its job, it's also important to note that we have an individual governor with each of these director positions to make sure that all work is done well. So now Steve is going to go into a bit more about the Junior State of America Foundation.
All right, thanks, Jean. One more note about that last slide. A program director also works with each one of those national cabinet members to make sure that everything that needs to be done on the national level is done. The Junior State of America Foundation was registered as a 501c3 organization in 1941. Now, we started as an organization in 1934, but we became a nonprofit official organization 7 years later in 1941. As a 501c3, we must be nonprofit and nonpartisan, which means that everything that we do must be towards our mission, which is as you saw earlier, to educate people about civic government and civics, and do so without having any sort of political bias. Now, I'm often asked, does that mean that students can't have bias? Well, of course not. We expect that our student and the people who participate in our programs have their own political views. Our job is not to shape those views, but to provide an opportunity for our students to express those views. Most corporations that are for-profit are headed by like a president or a chairman, but as a nonprofit, we have a board of directors. Now, these are people who are not paid. They do it on a volunteer basis, and their job is to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. So, as you heard earlier, Caitlin is the student representative this year. Every year that a student is on the board, and they get to make the decisions that the board of directors, it's about 8 people. And those people, many of them are alumni, some of them are not. They come from business, law, politics, and their job is just to make sure that we're doing a good job with our mission. They also go over things like the strategic plan, the budget for the organization, any sort of larger questions that we need to ask ourselves as a national nonprofit. JSAF employs 20 full-time staff members. That fluctuates between 1 or 2 every year, depending on the programs we want to run. Roughly, it's 20 full-time staff members. We've got 2 main offices, one in California in Burlingame, and the other one is in Washington, D.C. I'm not going to go too in-depth, but we have a pretty typical corporate structure. We have our accounting team that does finances. Development is fundraising, essentially. They work with alumni and any sort of organization that might contribute to a civic organization like ours. Any sort of large grants and donations that come from the government, they also do. Operations, they take care of our technology and make sure that we're doing anything that we do technical. They make sure those processes are both efficient and up to the codes of the up to like the tax codes and legal codes. Public relations, I'm sure many of you use social media. They run all of our social media accounts. They also do any marketing material that you see will come through our public relations department. And the one we're going to go a little bit more in depth is programs. They run the summer school programs and summer programs. So we have 10 JSA states, and we have 7 full-time program directors. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but as you can see, a couple of them have 2 states, tend to be states that are a little bit smaller, and then one program director for larger states, so we balance out the workload efficiently. I'm sure you can recognize the name of your program director on there. So I think I get this question a lot, especially if people don't know the organization, but even some are very dedicated to it. If JSA is a student-run organization, then why do we need a program director? Program directors' jobs are not really there to what most people assume is that we run the programs with you as students. No, we are there to guide the programs, provide mentorship to JSA students and elected officials. We try to identify, recruit, motivate, inspire those that we see who have leadership potential, and make sure that every single delegate that comes to JSA events gets something important out of it and gets the opportunity to move into a leadership role if they so desire. We want to be there to be an informed source on all political issues. That includes not just the nation, internationally, and whatever state that you were the program director for, you're expected to understand pretty complex things about the state government. If any delegate has questions about any of those issues, we're expected to be able to answer them, or at least lead an informed discussion among a variety of different JSAers who have different views. We're responsible legally and morally for the safety and well-being of the students in our programs. We do things that students just simply are not allowed to do legally: negotiate contracts, deal with vendors, deal with school districts. anything really that falls into the realm of legal responsibility. We plan and run the summer programs, and of course, the main thing we talked about earlier: work with student leaders to plan and run JSA school year events like conventions. So, as we talked about earlier, we've got 3 major overnight conventions: Fall State, Winter Congress, Spring State. Almost all states have all 3. Montezuma Leadership Summit we have in California, where we bring 4 or 5 students from each one of the states and train them on how to be the most effective leader they can be. Most states have one-day conferences, state and regional, and those are like conventions, only not as expensive, and obviously are not overnight, but allows a lot more students to participate. Some who can't participate in overnight conventions find them especially enjoyable. And then, of course, chapter conventions. These aren't sponsored by JSF, but individual chapters using the JSA name can gather students around and have informed discussions in a not quite as formal setting, but also be able to get into the meat of issues that are important to that region. Our summer programs. We've had summer programs since I think since 1941. Right now we have them at Princeton, Stanford, Georgetown. We also have one in Beijing, China. And then we have institutes, which are shorter programs, 3 and 4 day programs at UC Davis, Princeton, UCLA. The summer school programs at Princeton, Stanford, and Georgetown are 3 weeks. Students take a full semester's worth of one college class. There's a really amazing opportunity to meet students from really all over the world. As you can see here, 34 states, 7 U.S. territories, and 8 other countries were represented among our summer school programs. The speakers programs, especially at Georgetown, where they go to Capitol Hill and gone to the Pentagon, the CIA, the State Department, several embassies, the White House. A couple of the highlights from the last couple of years: Sarah Huckabee Sanders spoke at our program. Rod Rosenstein was one of our speakers. Over the years, we've talked to John McCain, Senator Obama. Really, anyone who's been important in government has been part of our speakers program over the last couple of years. So if you're interested in that, I'd recommend going this year. So JSA's impact. About 80% of students say JSA has improved their knowledge of domestic and foreign affairs. Nearly all of JSA members say they're likely to vote and actively participate in future elections. 73% of students report that JSA has helped them with public speaking and interaction with adults. 87% of members say they'd be interested in attending public events to become civically involved in the future. What this doesn't say is, what the average high school student is, and percentages for all of these are in something like the 20s. So we feel that JSA's impact, and if you're an active participant, you understand that being around people who are politically active has huge benefits, both to understanding that there are other people that care about the world around them, and that they know that they have the opportunity to make a difference in their world. So we encourage you to be the people. I'm going to pass it back to Jean.
So yeah, just want to put the slide up here so you can kind of see just like the people that are in JSA. We say be the people a lot, and it means so many different things to people, but I just wanted to share like kind of what it meant for me. I joined JSA mostly because of the people. I was dragged into the club sophomore year by my friends, and I stayed because of the people. And I think be the people not only means be the people of America and the American democracy, but it also means be the people of JSA, be the students of JSA who care a lot about this organization, this country, and care a lot about what they believe in. So I just encourage that hopefully after learning a little bit more about JSA, not only on your school scale or state scale, but a national scale, you have an equal sense of pride about it, and that you can just strive to get more involved. So if you look at this next slide, you can see the emails for all of your governors. So if you have any state-specific questions, like you were like, oh, does like our state have a 1 day or something like that, or you just have questions or just want to reach out to your governor in general, their emails are down here, and you can feel free to just hit them with any questions that you may have about JSA, as I know they're all very qualified to answer them. But we're also going to open this time for questions. So if anyone has any questions, Steve, I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but
So there is a way to raise your hand. This little hand icon in the sidebar. If you raise your hand, I can unmute you. Or there's a question box. You can write questions in that box and send them. So if anyone has questions, they can do that.
Hi, I missed I missed the first like 5 minutes of the webinar because my computer wasn't working. So, what did you cover?
Gene, you want to go over the first couple of slides here? Mostly it was just the basic facts of JSA. Do you want to just briefly go over those, Gene? Gene? Okay, I can go over them. So it talks about when we first started, where our values are, the facts of JSA. We allow students to gain a new perspective and form their own personal opinions while taking in the information they're getting from other students on a peer-to-peer basis rather than being talked at. They talk with others. And the mission of the Junior State of America is to strengthen democracy by letting high school students experience it for themselves through their own elections and deciding what they want to debate and talk about through those leadership positions. Basic state structure. Are you part of the year-round JSA?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So you probably understand the basic chapter structure and the state structure.
Okay.
And then we're a national organization. I think a lot of people don't, a lot of JSAers don't realize how wide-ranging we are. We've got nearly 400 chapters throughout the entire country, over 7,500 tax-paid members, and probably a couple thousand more that or a couple hundred more that pay their taxes too late to get counted by the end of the year because they joined so late. And then we have a Council of Governors. The Council of Governors are student elected officials who their job is to make sure that the views of their constituencies are represented in the organization. They have a budget that's almost $3 million that they are largely that they play a large part in deciding how it works.
Veronica, I'm in the webinar. Shh. Sorry about that.
No problem. You see the national goals?
Yeah, I saw this. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Do you have any other questions?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. All right, Ty.
Hey, hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. What can I do for you?
Hey, so I was wondering, after starting a chapter of JSA at I'm starting one at my school, what is the next step after that? So what are we physically doing in our individual chapters?
So most chapters will have weekly or bi-weekly meetings.
Okay.
Have you been in contact with student leadership in your state?
I have a little bit, yeah.
Okay, what state are you in?
I live in Illinois.
Illinois. Okay. So that's Max. Have you talked to Max Zhang? Okay.
I have not. I should email. Yeah.
Yeah, email him. The student leaders will give you really good suggestions about what to do in those first meetings. I assume you have a teacher advisor and a constitution?
Yeah.
Okay. And those first couple meetings are about recruiting members. I think one of the better ways to do that is provide food and a really interesting topic that might not be really political. Some of my favorites is a hot dog sandwich. It sort of breaks the mood and gets people interested in the art of debating. And then when people will start understanding what it is to debate, then you can switch to more, standard political topics. There's a couple of guides that program directors in COG have written that help first, new clubs get going. I suggest emailing Max and asking to send you any materials that you might need, and then the student representative should be able to help you out with like specific issues. Is there anything specific that you any questions you have for me, or maybe Gene would be good to have a comment here as the governor?
Not so much specifically. Just is there anything that we get physically after we've set up our chapter?
Yeah, I mean, it's pay taxes. And Gene, I think did I mute you there?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So you have to pay taxes. It's right in the Constitution. You have to send in your leadership form, or at least let the student leaders know who is among leadership people in your chapter, the chapter president, the teacher advisor, those sorts of things, so that you get regular updates from the state.
All right, awesome. No, I think I'm all good. Thanks so much.
Sure. I got a question from Josh Schill. Does NatCab ever have conferences or meetings like COG does? Gene, you want to cover that?
Yeah, so NatCab is completely online, and they're completely virtual in that way. They never meet in person like our COG does. Our COG meets 3 times a year in May, August, and January, but NatCab unfortunately does not. But they do have calls. So the chair, the chief of staff, and all the directors have regular calls in order to ensure that everyone's like held accountable and just to create that sense of like unity, but they do not ever meet in person.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
Hi,
right.
It's me again.
Yeah, sure.
So my school chapter is relatively new, and like this is our second year, and I was just wondering what were some leadership positions, besides secretary, treasurer, president, vice president, that you would recommend, because besides those 4, we also have a outreach manager, but my chapter, I'm not on the executive. I'm not an officer, but my chapter wants to make me one, but they don't know what position they should add. So what do you guys recommend?
Well, there's a bunch of options. It really depends on the size of your chapter and what it needs. You could have someone in charge of activism events, finding opportunities for students in your chapter to go out and make a difference in the community, running the Fight Apathy campaign. There's also like a debate person, someone who's in charge of put the debates for each one of the meetings. Those are the 2 that come to my head. Gene, do you have any other ones that you might think of?
My chapter doesn't do it as a like secretary or vice president. We do it like we mimic a state cabinet. So we have a director of fundraising, a director of debate, a director of media, a director of activism, and then a director of expansion. So I think that if you look at your state cabinet and kind of see what they need and kind of see what your chapter needs that your state cabinet has but you don't have yet, and using that, it's definitely a good idea. I recommend activism strongly. I was in the same situation as you were when I was in my chapter, and that's how we created our department of activism, our position for activism on my level, and actually really helped us out, because having me solely be able to focus on getting us opportunities really let us do a lot of cool things.
Okay, yeah, I like the idea of making the positions of power like like the cabinet. We're just a little too small for that, but maybe later on we could do that, like maybe next year or something, or in a couple more years. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Anyone else? All right. Well, it's been great talking with you. I just want to go over a couple of things, the upcoming webinars you can see on here. We've got several coming up. So if you're, for instance, if your teacher advisor is interested in conducting or learning more about being a good teacher advisor, we've got one on the 17th. Chapter fundraising is always really important. I think any chapter who thinks, even chapters who might not think they need money, it's not a bad idea to have money in there to help out students who may not otherwise be able to afford it. Then we've got meetings on membership and recruitment. So for Ty, who was just talking about being a new chapter and what to do next, meetings and membership recruitment is a great one that's happening tomorrow at the exact same time. And then on Thursday, we've got one for JSA activism, which is really sort of the meat of what makes JSA different from other clubs. Any last closing comments from Eugene?
No, that's pretty much it. Just if I suggest everyone goes to another upcoming webinar, and if whenever JSA does webinars and stuff, I definitely highly suggest that you guys try to get involved more in this organization.
Yeah, well said. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for coming, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.